Hey friend, please subscribe and like the video. 1 second for you. A big deal for me. Part 1. The Birthday at the Glass Wall. The restaurant sat on the edge of Elliott Bay, glass from floor to ceiling catching what was left of the November light. I used to like this place for the honest view of water. No filters, no gloss, just the gray-blue skin of the bay and the patient crawl of tugboats. Today it smelled like lemon zest and brown butter. My daughter picked the spot. She said, "Dad, it's got a great view for a birthday." 71, retired bridge engineer, still paying for my own cake. That thought almost made me smile. The waiter refilled my coffee. Behind his shoulder, the water flashed like a pocket full of coins spilled on glass. Lena laughed, one of those laughs people use when they want to sound happy. Her husband, Brad, nodded without looking up, his thumb grazing his phone. In the window, I caught my reflection and didn't recognize the man at first. Narrower shoulders, same eyes. They talked about the kids, a vacation they couldn't afford, the repairs that never end. I nodded, dropped in polite replies, let their chatter fill the space. Then, as the server set down the dessert tray, I heard it. A whisper, quick, meant to slide under cutlery and music. Keep him distracted. I'll go change the locks. Maybe my hearing isn't what it was, but my eyes still work. Lena glanced at the door in the way people do when they've started a timer. I kept my face still, let my heartbeat rise and settle again, the way a diesel generator finds its rhythm. She started talking again. How nice it would be if I stayed with them for a bit. How a big house gets lonely for a man my age. How nobody should live alone forever. Brad stood, excused himself, important call, and stepped through the glass door. The server came back with a small cake. The candles, 7 and 1, glowed in a neat line like tiny hazard lights. Lena began to sing. Her voice trembled. Her eyes kept cutting toward the door. I joined softly, steady, the way I used to read specifications to clients who tried to bargain about the thickness of a beam. 40 minutes later, Brad returned pale, his shirt clinging to his back. "Something's wrong," he said, voice cracked in the middle. "Someone's already there. The papers are signed. The house is sold." Lena turned to me, mouth open, eyes blank. The waiter whisked away the empty plate, unaware of the collapse unfolding at table 3 by the window. I sipped my coffee. Steam fogged my lenses. "Yes," I said, 3 weeks ago. I built that place once. Now I'm building peace. Part 2. How a house is raised, how trust falls. When I bought that patch of land in Fall City, it was wet grass and pitch smell after rain. I was 31. By day, I drew spans for other people's bridges. At night, I set my own joists. My wife had died at Christmas. Quiet January, an empty child's cup on the table. Lena was 3. She kept asking when her mother would come back from the hospital. I said soon, and we both knew that meant never. I made the house with hands and stubbornness. I put every borrowed tool to work, every mistake in a ledger for later. I painted my daughter's room the blue she'd asked for. I want to see the stars. When it was done, she ran barefoot in circles until she fell over laughing. That sound soaked into the gypsum and the pine. Years went by. The flu outlived 4 winters without a major repair. The roof I patched myself. Then coffee shops and bike lanes arrived, and land prices started behaving like dune buggies in the sand. By then, Lena had flown through college and come back with ideas about updates, sustainable materials, and refinancing. I joked. She didn't. Brad married into us with a smile and a deck of slides. He sold insurance and confidence. I gave my blessing like fathers do, even when something in the gut says a piece isn't going to fit the plan and it's too late to swap it. They moved into the city but came often, Saturdays with grandkids and suggestions. At first it sounded like care. Then we began to replace you. We think the stove is unsafe. We ran numbers. Your house really needs management. We want to be sure everything's in order for when. I finished my coffee and memorized not the sentences, the intonations. How Brad measured walls with his eyes instead of listening to stories. How Lena avoided looking at the doorframe where I'd scratched her height each year. One rainy evening I carried over a toolbox to help them with a curtain rod. Halfway up the steps I heard voices through the cracked window. "He isn't forever, Brad." "Let's formalize it now," Lena said. "Frame it as safety," Brad replied, rehearsed. "You're his daughter. He'll buy it." I stood in the rain and felt not anger, something colder, understanding. Warm love had hardened into ownership. That night I unrolled the old plans, drew a new one, not for walls, for boundaries. At 8:15 the next morning I called a man people in Seattle describe as a bore, and the best in dry matters, attorney Matthew Shelton. I asked him to structure a sale through escrow, include a capacity evaluation, and notify family after the fact, not before. I asked him to divide proceeds across protected instruments, an annuity for income, a medical reserve, and a charitable fund for a community woodshop program. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I'm an engineer," I said. "In this design, the safety margin belongs to me, not to people who believe they're entitled to access." Part 3. The Guardianship Attempt. After the birthday lunch they called 2 days later. Voices brittle. They wanted to revisit, to rethink. We met again, no view this time. Lena spoke fast, impulsive, influenced, vulnerable at your age. Brad padded her sentences with soft business words. Misunderstanding, family solution, guardianship as a tool. I listened until the word inheritance surfaced for the third time. Then I set a folder on the table. Psychiatric capacity exam, clean, notarized sale, annuity schedule, a narrow power of attorney with hard limits. "I'm not asking permission," I said. "I'm notifying." That evening, Shelton called. They filed for temporary guardianship, claiming diminished capacity. I closed my eyes and heard an old sound. The first truck rolling onto a new bridge. Load applied, structure holds. Courtroom 4, King County. Air like a meat locker, walls like printer paper. Across the aisle, Lena, Brad, and their lawyer with a polished granite voice. On my side, me and Matthew, silver hair, spirit level for a spine. They went first. A portrait of a vulnerable elder, an impulsive sale, isolation, outside influence. They asked the court to make Lena guardian to protect her father's interests. The word sounded professional. I heard control. Our turn. Matthew stacked documents on the judge's bench the way a good carpenter stacks straight stock. All decisions deliberate and financially prudent. Capacity confirmed. Sale through escrow, funds in low-risk instruments, access limited, designations transparent, no theatrics, just physics. The judge asked if I wished to speak. I stood. My knees remembered 40 winters in work boots. "I built bridges," I said. "They stand when you set the right spans and when nobody cuts steel without a plan. I didn't sell my house on a whim. I sold it after hearing my daughter and her husband discuss how to properly arrange my life without me. I don't need guardianship. I need my decisions respected." The judge looked at me a long time, then leafed through the record. Paper whispered like plywood trimmed clean. "Petition denied," he said. "No grounds." One measured strike of the gavel. Lena's eyes dropped. Brad's jaw set. I didn't feel victory, only the quiet that comes after a hurricane. On the courthouse steps, she called after me. Her voice hung between anger and shame. It didn't have to be like this. "Love without respect turns into control," I said softly. "One day you'll see that." I walked away. Part 4. The new floor plan of silence. I live now in a small place near the water. The windows face the bay, not my old orchard. That helps with the habit of letting go. At 7:30 every morning, I make coffee, crack the window, and listen to the city spool up. A trolley scraping somewhere, a leash jangling on the promenade, a container ship mourning hoarsely out beyond the cranes. On the sill sits a shaving of planed maple. Some afternoons I go to the community woodshop and help rookies, how to read grain, how not to fight a tool. The smell of sawdust is the only thing I trust not to age. I don't count losses. I count what I kept, the right to decide, A voice that doesn't need volume. Lines that don't need explanations. In the evenings, I walk along the water and watch white triangles lock into stillness. Wind shifts. Masts remain. One day a letter showed up. The handwriting was hers, every curve stepping on the next like it wasn't sure the floor would hold. "Dad," Lena wrote. "I was afraid. Brad said it was safety. I agreed until safety became a chain. I don't want your money. I want your truth, and your yes or no. I'm sorry I read it twice and answered without sermon." I slipped a photo into the envelope. The old door jamb from the house, scored with our pencil marks. On the back I wrote, "You can rebuild. Start with your word," and with the kids we met by the water a week later. She came alone. No phrases, no folders. "Saturday. I was blind," she said, "and it was convenient." I nodded. "I'm not asking for the house back," she said. "I'm asking for the lessons." "First lesson," I said. "People who love set boundaries." Second, apologies don't restore the right to manage someone else's life. Third, respect is measured in quiet acts. She looked out at the water. "I'm filing for divorce." I didn't cheer or mourn. That's her project, her schedule, her budget. "The kids?" I asked. "With me." "And can they come to your shop?" "They can. But tools have a line, like everyone else." We started to see each other again, slowly, without should. The grandkids learned what linseed oil smells like and that tongue and groove isn't about puzzles, it's about patience. Lena brought pies. Sometimes the crust burned. She's learning. We didn't talk about money. We played the quiet game adults play. You do your work, I do mine, we leave each other air. One evening, the bay turned the color of old copper. I sat on my usual bench. It occurred to me that all the bridges I've drawn are built, inspected, standing. But the main span, between me and myself, I may have thrown only now. And it holds. Part 5. No fanfares. A few months on, the bank sent a letter. The annuity performed exactly as modeled. In the shop, a kid named Noah finally stopped tearing dowels and started hearing the fiber. I shook his hand like a colleague. That night, Lena called, "Dad, can we just walk?" We did, almost a mile without words. Near the end, she asked, "Have you forgiven me?" I told the truth. "I taught myself not to be angry," I said. "Forgiveness means not letting yesterday boss around tomorrow. Trust, and that's built like a house, fresh foundation, dry lumber, short spans." She nodded. I saw the girl who once asked for a window to the stars. I did what I do best. I didn't break anything, and I didn't hurry. On Saturdays, the shop is loud with grandkids. We plane thin stock and learn to hold the angle. Sundays, I stand by the water a minute longer than I need to, just to remind myself, dignity is the only material that doesn't warp with time. If you made it this far, thank you. I'm not shopping for verdicts. I wanted to tell you how I stopped explaining my walls to people already planning to swap the locks, and how I found not a win but a stillness. Sometimes it's better not to fight for things. Sometimes it's better to stand for peace and keep walking until the light on the water goes out on its own. Victor.